The terrain. It's crunching, munching, crashing back.
It's time to play the game.
Time to play the game.
Oh my gosh, there's so much other things going on, like wrestling. I'm literally watching WrestleMania right up until the podcast. No, this is more important. This podcast with minimal viewers is the most important podcast on the internet.
Absolutely, pal.
That's right, brother.
100%.
Damn, pal.
I'm gonna gorilla walk onto the internet. Gonna poop all over you.
Oh.
Quiet. Now, I haven't heard from Silver, but we all know it's finals week, so.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah, she ain't gonna be here.
No. The perpetually stressed out young lady is Kaiju Monster. Is not gonna be here.
It's not good to get the Kaiju Monster stressed, I'll tell you.
Well, which is all the time. It's constantly.
Like one of those Italian greyhounds, constantly nervous.
Yeah, just shaking in the corner. Minor update, I have changed player level and high score and switched them because I thought it made more sense that subscribers was high score.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I mean, I modded the game.
You modded it. The game has been modded.
The DG podcast game. Regardless, if you're watching this podcast, you are trapped in the space Winnebago as we fly, desperately trying to figure out what's going on with pop culture right now. Lord Helmet. We may experience other spaceships as we go. We may not. I've seen on the radar there are things out there. Jason has run the technical analysis.
Oh,
we may see horrors.
Wearing the blue uniform.
No intelligent life in the vicinity, Captain.
We may see horrors of space out here. The reason why I'm slightly delaying is like, oh no, it's Disney.
Flee!
We better go fast.
Gotta go fast.
You know how hard it was to get the AI to make a spaceship with like Disney ears? Because it's like, well, it was like no copyright, and I was like, giant black satellite circles at the top of the.
Even AI is afraid of the mouse.
Even AI afraid of them lawsuits.
Terrible.
So despite the fact it's WrestleMania and it's time to play the game, we are here to drain their viewers to make an impact.
Yeah.
And in order to make that impact, we're going to listen to Jason tell us about some weird anime he's been watching.
Well, I was watching Tower of God earlier.
There you go.
Have you seen that one?
No, I mean, I think I tried it and I didn't like it.
So far, it's okay. I've heard that it veers off into the weeds. It's a Korean one.
Ew.
Ew.
Yeah.
So far,
Ew.
the action's okay, but the animation style is very. It seems very unfinished.
Do they
So
eat
it's kinda
fermented
sketchy.
cabbage?
Not so far.
Then it's not.
Supposedly, if you climb this tower to the top, you get your wish, and so they have these tests for people to pass. And this kid, this girl finds him. He has no memories. She goes to climb the tower, so he decides to go climb it too. Apparently, there's a big
So,
betrayal later on in the first season, but
spoiler.
yeah. I also watched this really, really terrible sci-fi movie called The Beyond. I watched it mostly like I started noticing it was going to be terrible, but it was kind of like the car wreck kind of thing where it's like I got to see how this ends. It was so a wormhole opens up above the Earth. Some astronaut gets sucked through. And then they start trying to send drones through, but they lose contact with them. So apparently, this shadowy organization who's been experimenting on removing humans' brains and putting them in robot bodies comes forward and says, "Here, we got these bodies ready. You just need to give us the astronauts." And they have two people that they do this with. And then they shoot him through the wormhole. And before they can go into the wormhole, the one that was a soldier that was outfitted with a gun in like one of his arms, he gets ejected from the pod magically, and his arm gets blown up, and he gets erased. The scientist lady, she gets through the wormhole just fine, and then she comes back, and they're like, "Oh, she's only been gone like a few hours, and she's already back." And apparently for her it's been like 5 years, and on the other side there was a planet, and she magically gets down to the surface of the planet, and the aliens are like, "You have nothing to fear from us." And then there's these orbs that are these black orbs floating over the Earth, and they're just floating there. We're trying to do, the army's shooting things into them, and nothing's happening. And then these like meteors come out of nowhere and strike the Earth, and the orbs open up and save humanity.
This sounds absurd.
It gets even worse, because then the aliens are like, "We'll keep watching. We did this to protect you. We're on your side, but we'll keep watching you." And then they create a second Earth in the orbital path of Earth, and they call it the movie calls it like Earth 2 or something like that. And they start making plans to colonize this other Earth that's somehow in the orbital path of Earth. And this addition to the solar system doesn't suddenly throw
Cause massive problems.
The whole gravitational equilibrium out of whack, and something goes spinning off into the sun. It was so dumb.
You ever hear about
So,
that what like ghost planet they think is out there? And it's not because
Yes.
we could see it, but because they think they can see the like gravitational effect on the solar system because of its existence.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
But the thing is that that they've done calculations. They've seen things in the solar system. I forget which planet it was. It might have been Neptune. Some scientist, years before they discovered it, was looking around and was like, if all these gravitational effects that we're observing are constant and everything, then there should be a planet about here. And he predicted that there was going to be a planet there. And then, I don't know, how many years later, they're like, "Hey, wait a minute, there is a planet there." So this whole thing about there's these gravitational effects that they're observing and this phantom planet, that's great. but they should be able to say, because of these effects, the planet should be here, and then they should be able to look there and find it.
Jason, I'm not saying there's any guarantee. Like, people think that the pyramids have a power plant underneath it. I'm
That's
just
true.
saying that this
Well,
is
they
something
do.
somebody brought up. Well, confirmed. And it was done, like, the study was done by the guy that believes that aliens also built the pyramids and stuff. It's like, so I'm supposed to believe that this is legitimate? Oh no, it's a
Yes.
large, scary, looming planet coming into view. I
Listen,
wonder.
this is all perfectly rational. I don't know what's so confusing. Oh no! I don't like that planet.
It doesn't seem to be doing so well as of late.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be some problems with that one.
References.
I don't like the look of it.
Gross. Well, as we slowly don't look out the left side of our windows and try and avoid the horror that is Planet Hollywood. Not brand, but
Not the restaurant. Not the lovely restaurants with which I've eaten at maybe twice.
I don't think I've eaten at any Planet Hollywood.
Me either. Are they any good?
They're fine. I mean, it's corporate shit. It's fine. You're there because of ambiance, and those kind of restaurants haven't done well the last 10 years.
That's true.
No. Part of it is because they have like props from movies and glass cases in the restaurants and stuff.
Yep, absolutely. And I remember the first one I went to, it was in Hawaii, and I was 10. And that, like, as a 10-year-old, that was really cool. Now, as like, I think I went again at 17, and they're not that cool.
Ross, how's it going there, camper?
Well, Slugger, things are going good. Watched another fine episode of Masters of the Air this week.
Oh yeah, how'd it go?
Yeah. Been watching it with Sage. Good. I like that show quite a lot. It's very good.
I told you.
Yeah, I did. It's not that I didn't believe you. I just didn't take the chance to watch it yet.
Freaking dragging your feet.
It'll be there. They're never going to release it on Blu-ray, so I may as well, or DVD, so I may as well just get it over with. I was hoping they would do that, but I don't think they will because Apple.
Because I still can't get Greyhound on flipping Blu-ray.
Listen, Apple, sweetie, release some stuff to DVD or Blu-ray, please.
Seriously.
I specifically want one, now I guess two things. I mean, Severance, but Severance was one of those, like, the first two seasons are really good, but it can suck, and now I'm holding on to DVDs of a show that sucks.
Yeah, I have the first 5 seasons of Supernatural. Never going to own the rest. No point.
Well, imagine being one of those people that went hard on Game of Thrones, only for the last couple seasons to just depress you. Like, that show was so big, people were naming their children Khaleesi, and I was like, don't do that to your kid. Imagine the disappointment when they got to the last couple seasons. They're like,
oh no,
I've cursed my kid with a bad show. It
turns out Khaleesi's a big moron.
On his chest or his back.
Well, and I know this is a nerdy podcast, and nerds get obsessed about stuff, but your kid's more important than some Game of Thrones show. Just to put that out there.
It'd be shameful enough to have those last 2 seasons on Blu-ray or DVD, let alone a kid named after it.
Yeah.
You just don't want to look at them because you blame them partially for the end of the show.
When she grows up, she starts going by Jane or something.
As she should.
Dad, why won't you look at me?
I just, it's hard. It was so good.
I'm still
Rhett
upset
and I
about
also-
the ending.
Rhett and I also went and saw a fine, not a fine film, a okay film in theaters.
Well, it's got badness and goodness in it, yes.
Yeah, it's a movie of potential that it never reaches, but also doesn't completely shit its pants. So it's got that going.
It does a little bit on a couple of moments, yeah.
Yeah, but not like. Boy, last year was hard for movie going experiences in the theater. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, we had constant failures. Instead, this was like
Oh, yeah.
so much potential. Oh no, it's living up to if you want a quick review it before we get into the main topic, you're welcome to.
So it was Sinners, the Ryan Coogler film. He's shockingly working with Michael B. Jordan yet again, and a complete shock to no one.
That's
For
the one
the
where
third
Michael
time?
B. Jordan plays twins, right?
Yeah, he's doing the Tom Hardy thing in that Cray Twins movie thing. And it's a period piece, takes place in 1932, in like the Delta of Mississippi, and about these brothers who have come back to town, and they're gonna start up a juke business together, and they're gonna have their little cousin play the guitar, the blues guitar, and like the first, almost half of the movie is them setting it up. I mean, at least the first third, but it's almost half.
Not to spoil anything or intercede, but to give you clarification as to why that's a big deal, is because this is a vampire movie, and we talk about none of that for like the first half, if not longer, like 60% of the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, which would have been. I mean, I would have been fine with the not even talking about it at all, except that like the advertising lets you know it's a vampire movie. So
the advertising is all that last bit of the film.
Yeah, almost last bit. It's so the movie with two endings. Anyway, so the juke going and the music starts playing, and I mean, should I get into any spoilers or anything, or just keep it vague?
Keep it vague. We may decide that to sit down and I guess review it. So I don't know.
But so then, obviously, as the advertising is shown, vampires. Oh no, vampires!
No, Ubisoft.
Oh god, even worse. Keep that garbage barge going by. Good lord.
Did you notice the hammer and sickle on the vehicle?
I like it.
Anyway, go ahead.
Shouldn't
But
we have
yeah,
a
so
Chinese star?
oh no, vampires, and then yeah, there's actually two endings in this movie. I kind of almost three, because there's a post credits scene or a mid credits scene.
Yeah.
It
was almost early credits scene.
Yeah, it's not horrible. It had a lot of potential, and its tone and pacing
is all over the place.
Is all over the place. Like, the movie isn't long, but at points it feels long. And then once it hits that second ending, you realize, oh my god, I should say the first ending. You go, wait, what? That's it? And then it goes into the second ending, and you're going, wait, okay. And then the third ending happens, and you're just wanting to go home. So, it's... Yeah, it's a beautiful movie, too. I mean, it's genuinely a very good-looking movie.
Very well shot. Very well
shot.
Michael B. Jordan is really good.
Yeah, there's a reason he gets paid big bucks. And, God, special shout-out to the costumer. I really liked all the costumes. Like, Michael B. Jordan's twins' suits are spectacular. It's a big piece of Americana in that film, and then a whole lot of weird stuff in there too, and it's hard to kind of get your brain around sometimes. But if you want to see a vampire movie, go see it. I mean, it's worth a watch, but
but it's not a vampire movie.
Not really. No, we'll get more into that when we review it.
Yeah, that's not what it's about.
I don't know. I'm not sad for having seen it. I was perfectly fine having spent my money on it, but it's not going to be 30 Days of Night in the 30s, I'm afraid to say.
I mean, the first half of the film is really good. To the point where it's like, I want this movie. This is an Oscar-winning period drama,
Yeah,
and then
like
it
a crime
goes
film.
off
Leave
the
out
rails. Well, it's not even the
Yeah.
vampires.
No, the vampires aren't the problem. That would have been fine.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But not to spoil, but there's so the first half, third half is like it could be like a period piece crime drama film.
Yeah.
And then there's vampires. And so that would okay, so we have the vampire ending. That would have been fine. I would have been okay with that. And then the second ending is the crime drama ending, which I also would have been fine with, but they had both of them for some reason, and you really didn't need it.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Wow. And then there's this whole tertiary plot, which is almost more important than any of the other stuff going on. And that is one guy has magical music powers.
To let people see their past or the past ancestors. It is anyway. It's so bizarre, and I don't.
Past and future. Because
Oh my god, yeah. Let's not forget Black Macho Man Randy Savage Guitar Man.
or the important cultural part, the twerking,
Oh my god.
which completely removes you from the period piece, and then you go, ew. Like,
Yeah.
That's something I hate about those things. It's like they're trying to be period, and then they ruin the immersion for you by introducing something modern. And you're
Well,
just like,
it's
if
not
only you hadn't done that.
It's not even inaccurate in the this is from a different time. It's not even that, Jason. He's literally playing music introducing the past and the future of the ancestors of the people in the room. And so
Yeah.
suddenly a guy appears with electric guitar and somebody else
Oh.
is like on a
Okay, so it's the
turntable.
Turntables.
And then there's
Yeah.
a lady in the corner twerking, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. Like I said, the first third half, good. I wish they would have focused a little more on the vampire stuff and fleshed it out for an ending. Or just bagged that and done the crime drama entirely. But yeah, it's a movie full of potential, and it's a really good looking movie, very good looking movie.
Yeah, I agree.
And Michael B. Jordan kills it, and he should be proud of this film because he did a really good job in it.
I am all in, like the period stuff, like the Southern black culture with the preacher and the blues. I was so in. I was like, oh yeah, give me more of this. Give me period piece and
Yeah, and even the little Chinese family that runs the general stores on the black side of the street and the white side of the street, which I love that little detail.
yeah.
Like that's all great. I love all that, man. Like that's wonderful.
The fact that they bring up Jim Crow as a thing that they're actively living with, sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it's never, which is weird to say considering it's the 30s in the Delta of Mississippi, but it never they talk about it, but like literally like you would to like people like it's never like you might see like a glimpse of like like at a train station like tickets whites only line. But it's never like super over the head. Weirdly enough, like it's such a
Well, I think that's part of what I liked about it so much is because usually with those sorts of movies, you don't get slice of life of people living at that time. It just becomes about the racism or it becomes about the Jim Crow. And that's the only thing the movie has to say about anything. Whereas this, it's like the average person, it's a part of their life. And they would talk about it, but it's not about that. It's about sort of their interactions with each other and their families and living at that time and living in that time. And that's partially what I appreciate. Otherwise, it's like every single moment is like, you didn't get that moment where they zoom in on a water fountain. It's like, you can't drink there sort of thing.
It's so weird. Like it does a really good job of like, it's all like, you cannot separate it from there, but it's just very naturally done. Like it's really well done. I'm bummed that like more Ryan Coogler could make a period piece, and I think he'd do very well. And whoever wrote this, I assume he helped with that. I don't know. I didn't look that up. But
Well, and it's not that it's wrong doing a movie about those things, but you never get to see the daily life. And whenever they feature it, it almost seems like they're trying to shake you out of falling into the groove of the film. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go hang out with my cousin and stuff. It's like, but racism over there. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. But
yeah, like
it feels disconnected. Something like they just like force the camera to turn and the audience to face it. And it's like, I mean, yes, it's there. I kind of want to feel these people's lives in this situation.
Well, when they make it, the focus of the movie, their focus isn't just to showcase it. Their focus is also to show how it's bad, and so you can't just have it be there, because then you're not then promoting the message that you're trying to build with the film. Otherwise, like you said, I remember watching Hidden Figures about the black ladies who are working for NASA.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where Kevin Costner basically goes and rips down the whites only sign so that this lady could use the bathroom closer to where they needed her to be. At that point, it was very much kind of one of those, this is definitely a civil rights type film, and that's fine. That's fine for what it is, but they had to hammer home the message. They had to, definitely show that the one lady had to steal a book from the library so that she could start learning how to program computers, because it was in the whites only section of the library. And
the reason why I bring it up this way is it ends up hyper focused on, it's like every person is fighting this struggle, and it's like the average person isn't trying to resist or trying to like change the situation. The average person is just living with this. And that's what I found so interesting. So like they interact with this member of the Klan, like who sells them property. And instead of like the guy sitting there like doing a jig being like, oh, you black people, you're awful. You know what I mean? It's like, it's in a very obvious, like almost over the top way. It feels so natural as to how that relationship would play out, where they don't trust each other.
Yeah.
Where there's this like
thin veneer of like societal
suspicion and distance and
and like they're being polite enough to each other, but like they're like he like says like, now what are you boys doing around here? Like what do you plan on doing with this place? And like he said it where my white mind would just thought of a Southerner like saying like, because they in the South they do say that to everybody in a way, but like they are like, hey, we're not boys. And he's like, no, I didn't mean it like that. Come on now. Like, like he's like, but he was only okay with them because of their money, essentially, right? Like he wouldn't give them the time of day otherwise.
Well, but it felt so much more natural than a normal Hollywood movie would deal with this situation, where he might even like walk in with a hood on, the way Hollywood would display this scene.
Yeah, which also made the later scene, the second ending, very interesting too, by the way. And the other thing, like the thing I liked about it in that sense, that first third or half or so, was I remember when I was in college, like in the education side of social studies, they talk about like, especially if you're going to teach like black, any sort of history as far as Black Americans go, there's a real bad tendency in social studies to where it's like it's slavery and the civil rights movement, and that's all you get.
And you don't learn it.
Yeah, when like black culture in America is a lot more than just those two things. And there's a thing with that in Hollywood where it's like it's a civil rights movie. Like movies are often about big pivotal civil rights moments in history, rather than like regular lives these people led. I mean, they're out there. I'm not saying they're not, but like the big movies I can always think of, there's stuff like that.
Well, and there's
does a really good job of not doing that.
Well, there's been a gross effort to erase a lot of Southern history simply because even if it's not racist, it's attached to the antebellum South in some way or another. And almost like wholesale aspects of not just white culture, but black culture is almost pushed away. I mean, I know the controversy was Song of the South, but it's a black folktale of the South. And because it sits in antebellum South, there's almost this like, ew, gross Disney racism. And it's like, it's like a charming tale about Brer Rabbit. There's so much that we've basically deliberately refused to like look at anymore because there's stuff attached. It reminds me of especially how we deal with stuff that's in the past historically, how poorly human beings deal with stuff historically. Famously, Bert Kreischer was gifted a teacup that might have been owned by a little mustache man from the 1930s. Because he's into history, and when he was gifted it, he giggled hysterically, and then he goes, "I have to destroy this." And I was like, why? The idea is
something off of it.
Anything that's attached to anything that's uncomfortable historically needs to be destroyed. And I was like, you know what that doesn't do? That doesn't help people remember. That's hiding it.
Yeah.
Not addressing
that they have
people that lived and existed and pretending and like looking the other way and not bringing it up. It's like, oh, well, there's trauma. It's like, you know what'll make it come back faster? Pretending it never happened. That'll make it come back faster. It's like, why would you destroy a piece of history? Why would you, even if it's gross history, even if it's symbolism from a period of time that's disgusting, there's a reason you're supposed to look at it in the face, because you should remember the dark and the light parts of the human nature. Which brings us to the difficult discussion now. I know. What's that?
Oh, I just said, oh no, Ubisoft.
Oh no, Ubisoft, yeah. They're dragging their brands behind them. So, for the purposes of this podcast, and because this is a constant feature, especially with the recent confirmation of the rumors about Snape and the race change and everything.
Oh my gosh.
Silver says, "Oh, you three get to have fun and live lives. Ha, joke's on you. I bet you're so jealous you're not computing statistics of the fraction of the U.S. population that identifies as non-binary." Loser.
No, we're actually enjoying our lives as opposed to what you're doing.
Where was I going? As long as Silver's in misery, I'm pretty good. So we got the confirmation. We already knew the rumor was true, but we got the confirmation officially from, I guess, HBO or Warner that's doing it. The Harry Potter show that we've got the new Snape, and the new Snape happens to be of African descent. And I know everybody inaccurately, a lot of white people don't know how to deal with it. Well, African American is like, he's not American.
No.
He's a black man. Which
that's one of those weird conceits that we have. It's like everybody's African American, and it's like, well, no, he might be African British or something of that nature.
Well, and by that definition, it's like Elon Musk is technically African American.
He is.
I knew a guy that did that. He when he'd buy guns on the 4473, he'd mark African American and then go, he was an Afrikaner. And he'd be like, "What? I'm from Africa."
I was born there, so was my parents, and the parents before them. It's like we're about as African as it can get. We don't need to get down that road. So this sparked a massive discussion of drama on the internet, which can open up to other topics as well, of the idea of race swapping. And I thought, instead of going through the same platitudes of, oh, this is stupid, this is how it ruins storytelling, this is why it's bad in this regard, or that we explore it at least quite a bit deeper than we normally do, and address directly sort of why it might be happening and why it's not good for the brand and stuff. And I know I haven't asked you guys to sit and think about this topic beforehand, but we're going to do this more natural as you respond to, I guess, my diatribe about this.
All right.
Now, race swapping is not a new thing. It's happened for a long time. There are old characters that are played by people. Now, an easy example is Genghis Khan with John Wayne, but it's not. It's the funny thing about that is it's not necessarily race swapped. It's more like yellowface, because he's not pretending to be a white. He's not pretending to be Genghis Khan was a white man. He's a white man pretending to be an Asian. So technically, it's not race swapped. It's yellowface, which is funnier.
Yeah, it is funnier. The thing is that, and I understand this from an academic point of view, because they did this a lot. There's a fictional detective, Charlie Chan. They made a whole bunch of movies. They even made one, if I remember right, way up into the 80s. And Charlie Chan has never been played by an Asian actor. Never. Every time he's been played, it's always been yellowface. Even though he has sons and daughters and things that are in the movies with him, they've always been played by Asian actors. But back at the time that they were really making these movies like year after year after year, they were using well-known actors in the role, because it was one of those things where it's like, I don't know if we can get an Asian actor that will have the draw of at this point in time, a white actor.
I mean,
and so like, I can understand it from that point of view, but it is still cringy.
Well, no, I agree. And this is an interesting point that sort of thing has happened in Hollywood. We are perhaps veering off the race swap aspect, and now we're talking about historical Hollywood doing yellowface. So let me at least get through my spiel here really quick. The problem we have, so if you're listening to this podcast, it doesn't matter what political spectrum you might be on. This podcast is not strictly political. We talk about social political issues. And the reason why I have to keep emphasizing this is because it sounds like we're trying to address political issues, and we're not. Insofar as we're approaching how it affects things like pop culture, movies, comic books, media, whatever it happens to be that's within our wheelhouse. And that's how we'll address it. But the problem is, when you address these sorts of things, you have to bring up sort of the current political climate.
I understand. Current political climate does a lot of times, at least in the relatively recent past, has dictated a lot of this stuff.
Well, right. And the reason why it's more of a thing, once again, we're way ahead of the horse on this one. I'm getting there, I promise. So if you're listening to this and you have an agenda one way or another, I ask you to at least give us an open mind and consider why this might actually be a problem. Okay? Now, historically, when race swaps happened, it could be for political reasons, where the general audience was racist and they didn't want to see someone of a different race, or it was easier to sell the show, like Jason was pointing out, by having a more recognizable white actor. Or it was fairly innocent, where we had this really good actor and we thought that they would fit. A good example of a race swapped character. Now, just to establish this, I'm not a fan of race swapping characters, and I'll get into that. But in '89 Batman, where we had Billy D. Williams playing Commissioner Gordon, it didn't really bother me or bother anybody. And the reason why Ross is going, oh yeah, is because we all kind of forgot, because it didn't really matter. Not in the long run. Nobody really cared. Which is why it's so funny that it's such a contentious issue today. Because there was a time when it really didn't matter that much when race swaps happen. And it's because they made those decisions for oftentimes good reasons or even bad. But there wasn't a political motivation behind it. And that's partially the problem with the current race swapping, is when you would have these characters change races or even genders, which is happening with we'll talk about Silver Surfer. But they would do it with this is a great actor and this actor has draw and this is the type of person we need to respond. And you can often race swap characters and not have much change. So it doesn't really have that big an effect on the show. But in the current political climate, the intention is that we need more representation in a show. And so there's a deliberate, intentional effort to change the race of the character. Not because this is a good idea or this is a great actor for the part or whatever. Because now that we see shows and a race swap takes place, the immediate response isn't, it's like, oh, Billy D. Williams is Commissioner Gordon. The immediate response is they're doing this deliberately for an ideological political reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, you're just assuming. It's like, I'm not assuming. They state this outright over and over and over again. It's Hollywood says we need more representation. They literally say they won't give you awards if you don't have so much representation in a show, even though that will either A, not make sense for the source material, or B, not even make sense historically. Like factually, there wouldn't be like someone of different race in this place at that time. And so by those arbitrary rules that Hollywood sets forward, they've now forced a lot of these people who want to be considered for awards to include diversity where there's no reason to. And I know that the political climate believes that diversity in and of itself is a good. I will challenge you to consider whether or not that's true. Because diversity when it comes to race doesn't mean much. Character, personality, that's a lot more important than something that's arbitrary that you have no control over. But because we've become so hyper focused on race, I mean, as somebody who is a bit older now, this is way more hyper racial, our culture, than we've ever been during my lifetime. Not ever, but I wasn't alive during Jim Crow.
Right.
And this is so much more worse. So now that we've considered, it's like, now that we've had race swapped, and I think most would agree with me that the intention, whether or not it's good or ill, the intention is to create more diversity, then you should tell yourself, consider this if you disagree with me. This isn't a good artistic move. This is simply a political ploy. And nothing more when you make these decisions. It has nothing to do with the best decision. It has so much more to do with the politics. Who was trying to intercede really quick?
Oh, well, and that's what's so interesting to me is like, people complain, and not necessarily unduly, about like corporate intervention in artistic endeavors, especially with Hollywood, or in music. You hear a lot in the music industry, at least
Sure.
you used to. But what's so funny is this is one of the like most because of the awards thing with the Oscars now, where you have to have X amount of quote unquote diversity. That is like limiting art, and that's what's so funny. Like
It's
'cause,
anti-art.
It really is, and it's funny because there were people saying that at the time, directors, producers, those types, when they first announced this, and I think they were all just kind of shouted down or ignored. But I mean, that is some, and like I don't care, like it's an industry thing. They can do what they want in their industry. It's whatever, like it's whatever they will accept within that industry, right? But it is funny that what a limiting practice, and really does no serve. That's the whole thing, is it does no service to those diverse people who are inserted into this. What good does that do anybody? And when
It's pandering and kind of gross.
yeah, and like when these same actors could be used to make black stories or Asian stories or whatever, without having them to be like crowbarred into a superhero movie or whatever, a Disney remake, whatever it may end up being. It's just interesting. Whatever, they're getting a paycheck. I'm happy for them on that, I guess. But it just seems so limiting and unnecessarily so.
Jason, what do you think about the artistic damage that something like this does?
Well, I gotta say that if you're doing it for political reasons, you're not doing it for art. You're ignoring art to do your race swap, and that is blatantly obvious, usually, and people can tell, and they're turned off by it. Now, if you did it for the sake of art, people would probably be able to tell that too.
Probably.
And they would probably just be fine with it.
To at least do a counterpoint, as politicized as everything has turned into, the hypersensitivity to people being political has also been very strong. So even if they make a race swap that's not politically motivated, it'll definitely be called that.
Well, yeah, I was going to get into that as you were saying that idea did pop into my mind. It's like now anytime we get a race swap, people automatically jump to the conclusion that it is done for political reasons, whether or not it is. But the thing is that the creators will obviously say it's not. You know what I mean? They'll be like, no, it's we totally did this for artistic reasons. It totally isn't for political reasons at all. But then when you actually watch the movie or you consume the media, you're like, they're preaching to me here.
I don't even think anyone makes the argument anymore that it's for artistic reasons. I think they always make the diversity argument.
Which is so funny. These things would be probably have taken longer, at least, to be for people to become so sensitive to it. Oh no! Here comes the Disney ship. But like, if on the other side of that, you didn't have all these arguments about like not casting a trans woman in a role, instead they cast a man to play a trans woman, or like all these sorts of on the opposite side of that, where they're complaining like, well, why didn't you just cast you cast the wrong tribe of Native American person in this, or the wrong, kind of East Asian, it's just
remember the attacks against that one lady when they made the mummy, that horrible Tom Cruise mummy, and they're like, well, she's not African, and it's like she literally is Egyptian. but because she seemed too white to their eyes, it's like, oh no. Like it's like, no, she's literally Egyptian.
Didn't they complain about that with Rami Malek too in that one weird
Yes,
Gods of
who
Egypt
is
movie?
also Egyptian.
He's literally an Egyptian, like like that.
They were also complaining about that with the new Lilo and Stitch live action,
Oh,
and
yeah.
she's actually Hawaiian. I mean, yeah, she's probably she looks more Asian than Pacific Islander, but she actually is from Hawaii.
Well, and she probably has Hawaiian bloodline in her. Like that's
Probably. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
It's funny they complain about colorism, but then they do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
and it's just so.
And there's always that argument, the most frequent argument that you hear when it comes to this subject is, well, why do you care so much? Why do you care so much about race? And it's like, well, if race doesn't matter, then you wouldn't be changing it. You would just leave the person the way they are. Well, right. So you can't do that argument and also make it out like you care a lot about. It's like you care about race for noticing I care about race.
Yeah.
Stop noticing. Stop noticing me care too much about race and make everything racial. It's like, ew. Stop. This is just this weird, gross, circular who's the racist pointing at each other sort of thing. The Spider-Man meme.
Exactly.
And here's one of the bigger issues that this happens. And I know this is going to set, for those that are purist, like never change. Look, I disapprove of race changing. I think it dishonors the source material and it's anti-artistic when you make the decision. However, there's frequent situations where the change doesn't have that much effect on the story.
Yeah.
Or doesn't mean much contextually. Commissioner Gordon being changed, Catwoman's probably not that big a deal.
Hey,
I don't know why I'm making all Batman references. Yes, Rob?
Did you ever see the 1993 Much Ado About Nothing?
I think I have. Isn't that
That
the more
Kenneth Branagh made?
modern? I think so.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking about this movie while we were having this conversation and how things have changed. Like, you bring up Billy D. Williams as Commissioner Gordon, and you know who's in that movie? A young Denzel Washington.
Oh, yeah.
And it's funny because it doesn't matter to the story really one way or the other. I mean, I think nowadays I would be like, if I saw that, I'd be like, ugh.
Well, because you know the motivation.
Right, whereas I think the motivation then, I mean, they may have said like, oh yes, and it's so brave to cast, but this is 1993, to cast a young black actor in a Shakespeare production. But at the time, it's because he was a hot, up-and-coming young actor. That's why.
Was that
he was
a historical piece?
Ish. They filmed it in Italy, but it's very. It almost feels like a theater production, but filmed on location. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it is, but it isn't. Like, that's why I'm like, and I've always had this conversation with you. Like, when it's the theater production kind of feel, I'm much
There's
more
a
apt
bit more
to let that
leniency because it's more about who can do the role.
Yeah, like they're clearly not trying to be super like historically authentic, but they kind of are a little bit. They're filming on location in like these beautiful Italian villas and like the costuming. They're not wearing like modern day suits. They're trying to kind of make it look Renaissance-y. It's been a while. It's been a few years since I've seen that movie, but I don't know. But clearly, at the time, it was like, oh, he's a hot up and coming actor. Cast him. He's cool. That's probably why they did it. Whereas now,
Kingpin in the Ben Affleck Daredevil.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he was fine. And you know what? Contextually, it made sense for the story because they were turning him into some sort of gangster head as opposed to corporate pseudo mob head, where they made the change, but they didn't go like they leaned into the reasoning for it. Where like they gave him like some harder rap music when it shows him sort of thing. It's like so it kind of fits with the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so contextually, there are occasions where it's not that big a deal when it's changed. Now, I will roll my eyes or even complain in a modern setting because oftentimes you understand the motive, and the motive is gross.
Yeah, and they've made it clear.
Yes, and I hate that hyper racialism. I hate it. However,
Well, you
there
do know
are
that people, when you say something like, there are certain situations where it's fine. It doesn't. They're going to take that as an example of basically it's good to do it anytime they want.
no. Well, I didn't say it's fine. I said it's not as big a deal. Like I
Right.
still
And they're gonna say,
disapprove.
well, why do you have a problem? If you don't have a problem with it here, you shouldn't have a problem with it here.
Well, I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
Then there are occasions where it completely recontextualizes a character. And you can't say that it doesn't. Because there are certain characters whose personalities have a lot to do with their race in the story or who they are. Or even if it has nothing to do with the race, it has a lot to do like the story suddenly carries a different meaning now that the races have changed. And that becomes a massive problem because it now changes the actual piece of work and completely recontextualizes what they're doing. Now, case in point, and I know this has been brought up on the internet before, but I'm going to bring it up for the case of this conversation. When it comes to Snape, now that we have a confirmation that Snape is being recast with a black man. Now, Snape was classically described as pale and like greasy and like all these other features. And, yeah, and part of the stupider part is it's like we're going to cast a hot black guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like completely not the right character. But there's stuff in the story in Harry Potter where now that he's a black man, it changes the story. And you're like, no, it doesn't. It's like, well, how about when they strung Snape up by a tree in the book?
Yeah.
It's now lynching.
Yes.
And people, I've heard people try to defend this by going like, well, that culturally that wasn't a thing in Britain. It's like, yeah, but it's a thing in the country where you're going to sell more tickets than Britain.
Well,
I guess
also,
in this case,
it's
more
a thing
TV subscriptions.
in popular culture. We understand what you're doing.
Yeah, there's
Well, not only
Everybody
that,
will
now,
see it in a different light. Even that's not your intention. It recontextualizes it to everybody around. So you can pretend like this casting doesn't have, well, it's like whatever, we can just swap it out and it's not going to change anything. Oh, it changes so much. Everybody forgets Harry Potter spends a lot of time talking about bigotry.
yeah.
Well,
already.
not only that, but even if they're like, oh, that isn't the context. They didn't have lynchings in England.
That doesn't matter.
Right. The thing is now it's a hate crime.
Yeah, even by their
This
standards.
isn't just bullying. This is a hate crime.
It's like suddenly, if Hermione is black, are we going to have some weird, like, is it going to be weird when we're talking about mudbloods?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is she going to be? Are they going to cast her as a half black, half white, and suddenly it recontextualizes her character? That no longer this is a conversation about people who aren't purely magic. It becomes a contextually racial conversation when it comes to not just American racial sensitivities, but sensitivities in England and Europe, and like it changes everything about the story. Everything about the story. You can't just swap one out. And it doesn't mean anything. It's like, whatever. They're just as good. Like, why do you care? And it's like, the change has changed. Now the story is almost about racism and not about magic or whatever. It changes the story. You pretend it does. A lot.
You know what other movie I thought of that if you made that change, it would be huge? Did you ever see Training Day?
Yeah.
Imagine if Denzel Washington's character was suddenly white. I think his name's Alonzo in that movie.
Uh-huh.
That movie's very different. Now, you could make that movie about like a bully kind of thug white cop that's like intimidating and harassing neighborhoods that are not the same color as him. You can make that movie, but if you
Yeah.
just plucked the character of Alonzo and instead of having him be a black guy, have him be a white guy, but everything else is the same, that movie would be so bizarre in how it's not talking about it. Like, it would be the most strange story to have. You'd have to
Well,
change things in it.
especially when
for it to make any sense.
Denzel Washington's character kind of becomes Hood. Like he manipulates the local gangs to get money out of it. Suddenly it's a white cop just bullying black gangs.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, oh, this is a really different movie now. You could make that movie, but you can't just, it's not interchangeable. You'd have to change things in the script for it to make any sort of sense. And for it not to just be like horribly strange.
And I know, shocking, but if that was the artist's intention, they would have done that. And because you changed that, you've now changed everything of what the original writer intended, and you're dishonoring the original work. And now you've recontextualized the story into a messaging and agenda that caters to what you want to say and completely damages what was originally created, which is why people get really sensitive when you change classic pieces of work, which is why when they talk about doing things like race swapping in Tolkien's work, it recontextualizes a story. Now, you might not think it does, but Tolkien wrote this as a legendarium, as a mythology for the English people, for the Normans, for people that lived at that time, so that they can look back and have their own sort of mythology like the Vikings did, because he felt that a lot of their mythology was stolen from them and destroyed when the Normans sort of supplanted their original culture for the Norman culture. And so now that you're changing races, you've now taken away exactly what Tolkien was trying to do, was give a mythology to the English people, and now you're even taking that mythology from the English people and giving it to different races or new people. Whenever anyone says, and I know people, a lot of you don't realize this, but the reason why when people hear we're going to adapt it for a modern audience, what we hear is we are going to change the story to cater to modern political landscape, which recontextualizes things and completely changes the theme and the intention and the setting. When we say change for modern audience, we hear poison to the story. That's exactly what we hear, because we like the story already. And when you change it, you change a lot of aspects of what made the story originally good. We already liked it. Now you're damaging something we already liked. Now you're trying to insert politics into a story where that didn't exist. I mean, when it comes to Rings of Power, when they started inserting black characters into it, it wasn't because they're black. And it's not because we're racist that we don't like them in it. It's because now you're changing Tolkien's lore and everything is different. It's like, well, why are you so racist? It's like, that has nothing to do with it. It's because we're purist when it comes to the things we love. And now that you've changed it, you've brought it into a modern political, social, cultural landscape where you're now having the racism, diversity, inclusivity argument on screen when this show is supposed to be about something completely different. And I don't want to have a discussion about race and diversity in a show that has nothing to do with that. And now that we're ham-fisting these characters into things when contextually they shouldn't be there, you've now changed what was originally. And in the case of Snape and in the case of a lot of other characters, you're actually changing the meaning of the story.
Mm-hmm. Now, Rhett, you bring up earlier. You brought up author's intent and like their original
Sure.
concept and idea, right? Now with Tolkien, obviously, and especially people who are past or whatever, it gets pretty complicated, or it's just set in stone, like we just know.
I agree.
But it's really interesting in this case because we have J.K. Rowling, who is alive, and who in the past, because right now, obviously, she is on everyone's, at least on the left's, shit list for being a TERF and starting fights over that kind of stuff. But, in years past, like the joke, the meme on the internet was, like, people would ask her on Twitter, well, what about any Jewish wizards at Hogwarts? And she'd literally to be like, oh yes, Gerald Jewenblatz, Hufflepuff.
Yeah,
like she'd come up with
she
a
would
name.
insert awkward, like, backfill justifications for, and it's like, what is this?
Yeah, like, what about Irish wizards? Well, Patty McCarbaum. I don't know. Like, she just do so. Like, and with the Cursed Child, which she had control, like, because she and all of her stuff that she does, it seems, or at least you always hear, like, she kind of has a lot of power. Where she, if she didn't like someone who was cast or who thought to, maybe they're thinking about casting, she could be like, no. Because I remember years ago she said no Americans will ever play these characters.
And that's
well,
different.
Obviously, that's not. Yeah, and that's different now. And with the Cursed Child, she let their black woman be cast as Hermione, which theater productions are always a little different, but it is funny because we know what Hermione should look like. Who she wanted cast in the first set of films we got, how she described her in the books, not a black woman. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just not the case. But she let it, and the reality is, I think, my assumption, and based on her previous behavior, she's super into that. She's super okay with that.
Oh yeah, yep.
And so it's really, but I think it's really shocking that we now have like a major production, not just some little West End. Theater production only in London and maybe New York for a year or whatever. We have a major production, a TV production of her, redoing the story of her books, and a major character whose physical description is, littered throughout the book constantly, and whose physical description is part of the reason why he is traumatized the way he is and becomes the man he is.
Yeah.
And just throwing that right out the window. I mean, it's just okay. Like, maybe she's too busy having, turf fights with people on the internet right now. But I don't think so. I think she knows what she wants to do, and I think she's totally okay with this. And hey, it's her bag, I guess. But it's a little disappointing for me that's what she's all right with.
Well, I would address this in a couple of ways. Firstly, let's relate this to another original creator and author, George Lucas, who went back and changed the original films that he made.
Yeah.
And thereby changed the meaning of certain events and changed the film. The controversial Han shot first thing, though it's like a meme and it's like, oh, Han shot first. It's like him changing that changes Han's character, because Han really being this aggressive rogue character who is going to whip out his gun and shoot the guy before he can get him, now sort of waiting until he fires, now makes him sort of this more passive, less aggressive and threatening. It contextualizes Han's character differently, and that's the author going back and changing it. Now, where you draw the line, it's like, well, it's the author's work so they can change anything they want to. Yeah, but the original work set a tone, and going back and changing it because you don't like it is changing the original work and the art. Art has a multifaceted effect on people. Art, and I know this is going to sound weird, but art isn't just the artist's work. it's also the participation of those who experience it.
Yeah.
Now I'm not such a up my butt, self-absorbed person when it comes to art, where it's like as soon as it's out of the artist's hands, they have no hand in it. It's all up to the interpretation of the audience and whatnot. I don't necessarily believe that. But when you create a piece of work, you put it out into the world, you lose control of how people view the film. The Joker has a big issue with this. The Joker is a masterful work, and the original creator, the director, writer, and stuff, saw how people viewed the Joker and said, "I don't like that," and created a whole film to attack people for how they interpreted his first film. Which becomes this whole other interaction in the artwork, which when we reviewed it, it was such a strange sort of concept when it came to art, because it was like we've never had an artist try and recontextualize the first movie and then imply you're the bad guy for viewing a movie incorrectly, which was what was so funny about the first film.
So funny still.
When an piece of art comes out, it kind of becomes possessed by the audience. Now the artist can give you insight, give you context, and help you to focus how you interpret it. You could interpret it whenever you want to. You could find meaning in it in a personal way that the artist didn't intend, which is what's so interesting about art, is because a lot of it comes down to sort of what you get out of it. And some art people don't get at. I mean, here's a dirty secret. I don't care about Harry Potter. I just don't. And it sounds like I'm having this like impassioned speech to defend Harry Potter. I don't care. I don't like Harry Potter. I don't care about Harry Potter. Doesn't mean anything to me. But there is a discussion to be had when it comes to the original work is out, and that is her statement. And now she's going back and literally modifying the experiences of people from years ago, people who are children. She's literally going back and trying to screw with a personal experience with a piece of art that she created in order to justify a current political attitude that she might have. Now, I'm not saying that this decision is hers, but it fits within her political perspective. So,
yeah,
both can be true. You can gain something from the perspective of the artist and their intention, things like Tolkien and what he was trying to do. But when you read the book, and if you get out of it elements like fighting evil or doing the right thing, or like maybe not intentionally the focus of the story, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I think what's wrong is to try and, because in art is partially the interpretation or how people experience it. And an artist going back and screwing with that is trying to modify your experience, which is anti-artistic, I would argue.
Oh, yeah. I think so. And I mean, it's in a way, like from an out, like I find it fascinating in a way when artists do this, you know, whether it's George Lucas, J.K. Rowling, whatever. I always find it interesting, usually in a comical way, and I enjoy it in that sense. But when you have artists like George Lucas, who not only goes back and changes things, and look, the reality is, with those special editions, had George Lucas just gone back and fixed, like, the orange smear underneath the speeder on Tatooine, nope.
The force field, what was it,
Vaseline
that he smeared under?
Vaseline, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody would have really cared, but, you know, he did change things like on shooting first, like adding the weird cockroach man in Jabba's palace.
Yeah.
And sliced noodles.
Sliced noodles.
But but so he does, even if he did those things, still super annoying. We don't like it. We're not a fan of it, whatever. But then he goes, well, no, but you can't see the other one, and I'll never let it release again. Like, you can't, like, well, you better have held on to those laser discs or those VHSs, because this is the real version now. This is the only one that will ever be commercially available again. That's the thing. Where these artists, especially, the reality is, I mean, J.K. Rowling is one of the most wealthy women on the planet Earth, certainly self-made, not just marrying a rich guy and divorcing him. That, like, she has that power. He has that power. I mean, he's a very successful man. And it's just incredibly frustrating and disheartening and who knows what she'll do. I mean, if this is what she does, she, for this HBO production, she lets this gentleman be cast as Snape, who's, completely the wrong race. And frankly, even if he was white, he'd be too good looking.
Yes. They would, if he was black, they would have need to cast a very weedy looking black man.
I mean, honestly, like, that's the other thing. Like, I mean, even you can argue that even Alan Rickman might have been a little bit too good looking for that for that role.
Yeah, you could argue.
Like, whatever, she can do what she wants. But like, when it gets, like, the fear is always that George Lucas thing where it's like, yeah, but no, this is the real one now. Like, what's gonna change for the original versions now? Are the books gonna start changing? Who knows? I don't know. I mean,
well, then that now damages. Not to derail from that point, but another example would be E.T. Spielberg changing the guns and putting walkie-talkies or whatever in their head. It's like, so the police are so afraid of this extraterrestrial that they've spent huge amounts of money. The government sent in all these forces of military, and they're walking around with walkie-talkies to resist this extraterrestrial that might be hugely dangerous to mankind.
Yeah.
And then even Spielberg after the fact was like, yeah, I regret that. And I was like, you should regret that.
At least he can admit it. I mean, at least he can admit it,
Because that changes the story. That recontextualizes. It's like, imagine there are elements in Harry Potter that it's like Snape is a black man suddenly makes certain things that they would talk about different. It's like, oh, he's obsessed with the dark arts.
Yeah. Like all the children are suspicious and scared of the one black teacher.
Yes. Wasn't that one kid afraid of Snape, and that was his greatest fear that came out of the box? And it's like, the one person he's afraid of is the black guy.
Oh my gosh.
And
oh my gosh, that's so funny.
And I realize, like, well, obviously we are very much in the nerd space. Like that is where this podcast lies, and that. This argument always seems to deal with whether it's comics or Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, whatever. Because, like when I forget the actor's name, but the gentleman got cast as the Human Torch in that weird Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
Like, people complained, and then everyone who, because, like, I'll freely admit, I didn't care. But I'm not a Fantastic Four fan. Like, the only Fantastic Four I know. Not even the movies from when I was in middle school and high school. I mean, literally the 60s Hanna-Barbera cartoon. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
Because it was on repeats. And so, like, I just didn't care. Like,
and there are degrees as to whether this matters, yeah.
Right, yeah. And, like, I didn't know enough to know how it mattered, right? And so, like, whatever. But even beyond those spaces, I mean, let's take a look at classic literature, shall we? Or historical period dramas. You want to have a fan base, a group of people who are interested in this sort of thing that will tell you when you get it wrong. It's them. They will tell you, these dresses look wrong. You've done them wrong. Her face is too modern. She's had too much work done. She doesn't look right for this role. I mean, we're literally having that problem right now with a Wuthering Heights that's coming out, I think, next year or the end of this year. I forget the director's name. She made a movie last year that was really big, but they cast, she was in Barbie. What's her name?
Oh,
Margot Robbie.
Yeah, I know.
They cast Margot Robbie in it. And everyone's literally going like, yeah, she's a beautiful woman, but, like, she's too old. Like, that character's supposed to be, like, 17, 19 years old. Like, she doesn't look that age. Like, what are you doing? So, I mean, this is a thing that is, in my opinion, quite universal among fandom. Where it doesn't have to be race. It doesn't have to be, anything like that. It can literally be like, yeah, like her face is too modern. She looks like the joke is the iPhone face. Her face looks like she knows what an iPhone is, and that's not right. Like or look, you did the dresses wrong. Those dresses are a little bit too modern or too old or too like you don't have this aspect of them. Like I can see the hoops. It would just be petticoats. Like,
and
this is a universal thing.
An interesting aspect of what you're pointing out that matters depending on who you are, and much like art, when you receive something, and it's like the change of the race of Johnny Storm matters to people who care about the comics and have read them because they expose themselves to that art and that art had meaning and value to them. And now you're changing how they view it and they dislike the change because they feel like you're dishonoring the work. You know anything about history and immediately that means something to you because you understand the flaws in what you're seeing, whereas an average person wouldn't understand. I was seeing a period piece of pioneers moving across the plains, and I was watching it, and they had this close-up of these guys sitting there by the wagon. It was a handcart, but by the handcart. And they're sitting there having a conversation. It's like this real close-up, and I was like, there's a Phillips screw in that, and that wasn't invented in like the 70s.
That's not right. No.
Well, and there are certain things you can let go depending on the severity of the differences. I mean, this is why the discussion over Yasuke was such a big deal. Because he's not that person and shouldn't be there. And now you've created this element in Japanese history where you're now sort of changing what had happened and what was going on and recontextualize. I always find it fascinating where they go to these period pieces and then they add diversity to it. And it's like, oh, by the way, they would have been super racist, like extreme. And it's like, no, they were very diverse and okay with it, or even diverse in a way that almost makes no sense. Like, let's say, like ancient England was the most diverse place, despite the fact it would be 100% white, was the most diverse place on the earth. It had every kind of person. Now it's racist in a weird way. You know why? Because that tells me that they don't intermingle and they only date people or only marry and have children with people of their own race. Because everybody is like, we got a white guy, we got a black guy, we got an Asian guy, and there's no halvesies. They're all just as pure racially as they're all supposed to. It's like, this is racist in a different way now.
Yeah.
We won't mix though. We're super cool with diversity, but we don't cross lines. Ew. This is gross. Well, especially when you find like a show or something that exists in like a closed society. It's like, oh, a bunch of people living on a closed island without any interaction outside of them. There's one of those, and one. It's like, over given enough time, they would all be like mixed. I don't know why. I mean, if you start to think 5 seconds into it, it's like, oh, it becomes more racist. Like you think about it, it's like Rings of Power. It's like, so this is supposed to take place with the other stuff. So where did all the black people go? Did they have like a purge of anybody that wasn't white? And so by the time we get to Lord of the Rings, we got a purity.
We don't talk about the Balkan-esque purging of Middle Earth, okay?
Right. And so even the diversity makes no sense logically, and then when you put it in there, it now damages things to the point where it's almost weirdly racist and makes even less sense and how it's added.
Yeah.
And changing these things matter. Like the other big discussion that's hitting the internet, which fits in with what we're talking about right now, is the female Silver Surfer. And it's like, oh, okay, we're making a new Fantastic Four movie. All right. Pedro Pascal's Mr. Fantastic. I mean, okay. I have less to do with the fact that he's Hispanic and more that like Pedro Pascal, and he doesn't look like Reed Richards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit. But the female Silver Surfer completely changes the character and who they are. So and there's been a lot of, so there's an IGN article, and I can probably find it, where they try and explain, it's like, well, female Silver Surfer is okay. And this is why it makes sense for the female Silver Surfer to be in this movie. You're like, does it? It's like, no, it does. And we're going to backfill like we know anything about the character or the story and make it sound like, you know, we care in some contextual way. Okay, the IGN article's there. And it works. Okay, so IGN wrote this article, How Can the Silver Surfer Be a Woman? Fantastic Four, Shia LaBeouf explained. And they go through this whole thing trying to justify why the Silver Surfer is a woman. Believe it or not, making the Silver Surfer a woman changes the character. The original character, was it Nolan Rand?
Norrin Rad.
Norrin Rad. I was mixing him with the zombie guy. Norrin Rad. So the reason why Silver Surfer is the herald of Galactus. So Galactus is almost like a force of nature in the Marvel Universe. He goes around and purges planets that become too ripe, sort of thing. He consumes them, which I always thought would be cool, is he just eats the planet, but he puts up stuff and he like eats its essence. It's less cool. So Galactus has a herald that goes out and searches for planets that fit the description of they're too ripe and we need to consume them. Norrin Rad, the reason why he is Galactus's herald is because Galactus was going to consume his planet. And Norrin Rad, who is in love with the queen of the planet, makes a deal where he will go out and search for planets for Galactus to consume if he spares his planet. So now he's put in this weird position of he goes out and finds people for Galactus to kill in order to keep his planet safe. And it creates a sort of depressing, tragic element to his story. Zen-La was his love interest and like the queen of the planet. Now they're going to say, well, technically this exists in the comics, so it's justified. It was a short Earth X moment where instead of Norrin Rad, it was Zen-La. It existed for like a couple of issues, and it's an alternate universe. And it wasn't just her, it was her and Norrin Rad as the heralds. This isn't the main timeline. This is a weird offshoot alternate story about Earth X where she was also a herald. This is not the main line. This is not how it was originally. And now that it's just her, it changes the story. Now it's not just him sacrificing his ability to love this woman or even live on a planet. He's literally helping Galactus kill other people in order to save his own. And it changes the story. And believe it or not, changing genders, even if it doesn't change the story, sort of changes the feel of it. If you watch the trailer, she doesn't feel imposing. She looks kind of dumb. And not to be hypercritical of the trailer, but it's like, I don't even like how she's displayed. It shifts things. And this is not that different from race changing or from going back and putting walkie-talkies into people's hands instead of guns. You're trying to modify a story to fit a modern sensibility so that you could check boxes and so everybody can pat you on the back and give you a high five so that you could feel good that you are accomplishing and fulfilling a modern political standard. In the meantime, you're changing the original work and angering anybody who has any love or connection to these characters in the first place. And this is why people are angry. Now, people might state it inelegantly or might be really bigoted when they say it, But this is essentially why they're upset, is you're changing the characters.
I want to bring
you
up
pregnant?
one other thing
I don't know.
as well.
Right.
One thing that you haven't really addressed is that they are doing this for general audiences. But the thing is that general audiences don't really care about the Fantastic Four, and so because you're doing this, the fans are the ones that are creating the most backlash because they're the ones that read the stories. They know about all this stuff that you're trying to use as justification, but the reason they like the Fantastic Four is because of the original stories, not because of what you guys are doing.
I think we brought that up, but you can bring it up again.
That's what I'm saying. The original fans are the ones that are going to say, are going to cause this stink, and the normies are going to be kept away.
I don't think that's always true.
You're right. It isn't going to always be true, but with the way that Marvel has been going, I think that a lot of what you're doing is you're trying to. It almost seems like they're not happy with the fans, and so they're trying to get new ones.
That's
They're
always
like,
been the
"We don't
case for
really
almost
like you
every
guys.
piece of work.
We're ashamed of you.
I mean, Marvel Comics has been chasing a different audience than the ones that give them money, and they've been tanking because of it, because they just alienate their core fandom.
Right.
Angering the fans is not always a death nail for a show. I think it's
It doesn't
fair.
help.
Well, no, that's what creates the negativity on the internet, and that can help to discourage people. But normies will see a movie and like it, whether or not the fans like. Look, there's a lot of negative perception of things like Avatar and the internet. It made like $2 billion.
True.
It's like nobody really, and that's what's so funny about the show. Like nobody talks about Avatar. It's the show everybody goes sees, and doesn't really care to talk about. It's like, oh, it was a thing. It's like, why'd you go see it then? It has no like lasting effect on the zeitgeist. It's just kind of there.
None. Yeah, it's in and out.
So will this attract normies? It's possible. Because normies don't know why it's a problem.
That's true.
Now
But
the fan backlash might be enough to discourage people. I think in the case of Marvel, it might have a bigger impact because the fan backlash, they have slowly damaged their brand so much that they desperately need the fans to show up to get the word of mouth out to encourage people to see it. Because I don't think they've been bringing the normies because the stories have been kind of lame and uninteresting.
Yeah.
And if you can't get the fans, they won't drag the normies with them.
Can you think of an example of a comic book related movie that's been released that had wide audience appeal that ticked off the fans?
Yeah,
I'm sure there's
a lot. Zack Snyder Superman, Justice League, Captain Marvel. The hardcore comic book fans didn't like her characterization. It made like $1 billion. Because
Really?
normies yes, it did. And normies flooded to that movie.
I heard that was not a very good movie.
It's not a good movie. It's a bad characterization of Captain Marvel. It still made $1 billion. Now, a lot of the reasoning for it is it happened between Infinity War and Endgame, and at the height of the hype of Marvel, they're like, I gotta see this to understand the next one. Like, it's important for the plot and stuff. That doesn't mean it's a good movie, But
They
fans
came to it because they figured that it was part of the overarching story, and if they didn't see it, they wouldn't get the one after it. Gotcha.
But audiences definitely flooded to it. Fans hated. I mean, The Flash didn't do well, and fans hated it. But like Zack Snyder's Superman made money. I think it was like 6 or 7. I don't remember exactly. But it's not a good Superman movie.
Wow.
The Justice League was not a good superhero movie. Fans did go see it. Probably made like 600 million or something. So, I mean, it happens. It has had happened quite a bit. The biggest grossing Spider-Man of the Raimi trilogy was the third one, and it's probably the worst when it comes to the other two. Well, the worst in the wrong. I mean, it's memeably the best one.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that movie for the wrong reasons. So yeah, it happens quite a bit. Like there's oftentimes a big disconnect between hardcore fans and the general audience.
That's true. I guess what I was most curious about was, like, obviously we had the, like you said, Captain Marvel, and it just kind of went downhill from there. But do you see the Fantastic Four? Do you see that changing the trajectory here for Marvel movies?
Here's the thing with Fantastic Four, and the reason why I'm hesitant to declare its death, which it might. I don't think it looks like it looks good, but visually, it's very attractive looking. It's got Pedro Pascal, which seems to be a general audience draw. I like the sort of like 60s futurism aspect to it, which is really visually appealing, and it might draw people in, and it's disconnected enough from the other Marvel stuff that people won't go, oh, is this part of that other crappy, like it's brand new and different? So that it might pull people in who might have developed some sort of bias where there's like, oh, the Marvel movies suck now. It's like, oh, well, this is new. It's different. So it may actually attract a general audience. I don't think it will, but it may. It's like the Superman movie. It's like it could do decently. I don't think it's going to do gangbusters, but it's probably going to suck as far as like a fan's perspective will be. It's probably going to just be a terrible film.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any redeeming qualities yet in the Superman movie either.
But it may draw in lots of people. Superman, James Gunn.
Excuse me, you mean James Gunn's Superman. We got to keep it right.
Yeah, I apologize. He is the most important part of that film.
Absolutely. He is the one and only James Gunn.
I know it's an awkward thing to talk about when it comes to the race and stuff, and we've obviously opened it up to relating it to race is just an aspect of the damage you do to original content. We've always alluded to this. It's like, oh, it's garbage or race swapping stuff. It's like, but there's reason behind it. It's not just I don't like black people. It's damaging the characters, it's changing the story, it's recontextualizing the plot. It's not just the race, it's gender swapping, it's changing the stories to cater to some sort of modern sensibility. And like the reason why you buy this IP, the reason why you buy this IP and make this film or movie or product is because people already liked it. You don't have to change it to get people to like it. They already like it. There's a reason why you're buying it, because it's loved. Changing it now changes why, like, people's perspective and whether or not they love it. People already like Harry Potter. You don't have to insert new things into it. They're already going to show up. So why would you do it? And it all comes down to there's a political motivation, whether to cater to Hollywood, and the standards that they need to accomplish when it comes to award ceremonies, or whether it's to cater to peers, because there's this sort of peer pressure, or whether or not you're just sort of like posturing to everybody else to show your virtue. It's always scummy and stupid. And you're better served by honoring the original art, and you're better served by honoring the original reason why the fans love these things in the first place. Final thoughts?
Kind of my final thought is, like you said, the fans already love it, and the reason behind it is because of what the author did, not because of what you're doing, but because of what the author did. So anytime you get one of these IPs and you decide that you're going to convert it to a new medium, we recognize that there are going to be changes. We may not like some of those changes, but we recognize that there needs to be changes made. But in every instance where you're going to be doing this, adapting for a new medium, you should always default to what the author intended, what the original artist intended. You should never allow your own politics or your own DEI checklist to get in the way of what you're doing, because that's when you fail.
I don't want to speak for you, but I would add one small addendum, that it's not necessarily what the author originally intended, but what the original work says for itself. Because the author can retroactively be wrong about the own work that they've created.
True. That's true, but yeah.
Well, like Lucas, I don't think he understands why Han shooting first matters. Like, I don't think he gets it, which means he also doesn't get why people love Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because people love it for different reasons. There's aspects of adventure and being young. There's aspects of that talk to young men about their relationship with their fathers, and there's a lot of elements that he may not get as and so he goes back and changes stuff, and it's like, oh, this is a good idea, and it's like, no, I don't think you understand your work, George. But not to speak for you, but I would recontextualize it slightly to be like, let the original work speak for itself.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that especially now, when Hollywood gets their mitts on it, they always look at it through their own lens, and if it unfortunately doesn't say what they want it to say, they shoehorn that in rather than just leaving it as it was originally intended.
Sure, and this is a nuanced discussion where we're sort of splitting hairs of like, well, the author, but what the work says. Okay, but like they frequently, what you read originally in the first Harry Potter book, no matter what she does, she can't actually change how you felt reading the book. So if she goes back and tries to change things and tries to damage what you originally felt, or say, well, this character is actually this, or this character does this, now she's trying to screw with the original piece of work. Let the work speak for itself. As soon as it's out of your hands, you lose control.
Yes. How do you feel about, like, see, this is something that we've talked about before on the channel with the ending of Cowboy Bebop, where the director felt the need for clarifying the ending.
I think Cowboy Bebop is a little easier to explain because he wants it to be ambiguous, but everybody thinks he's dead. So it's less of a, well, you need to understand the author's intent, more of he failed in order to create a piece of work that people were up in the air about. And he ended up creating a piece of work where everybody was like, oh no, Spike's dead. He's super dead. Ross?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can add much more than what you said. Just the fans liked it for a reason. Making these changes is silly, and unfortunately, often at least as of late in the last 20, 30 years, sometimes the author is involved in that, and it's unfortunate because that's hard to fight against, But hopefully, artists and authors and whoever can learn from the sort of backlash or opinion that fans can grow of these artists, and how it can get a little bit unhealthy because they do these things. I mean, George Lucas is the most egregious, just because he does lock away the originals from you. At least so far, and hopefully continues to be. J.K. Rowling doesn't do that. So
No, and not to have the final word, but as you're speaking, I was like, there's frequently when artists can actually go back and damage their own work. And I was like, imagine the Mona Lisa, and the artist comes back to life. He's like, actually, I always intended to have a little kid like way in the background bending over and showing his butthole. That was always part of my original intention. And then it's like, ew, this changes it. And it's like, yeah, it does. I think it would.
Actually, I wanted Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes peeing on something in the background.
It's like, oh, that's why all of those memes went all over the place, because it was like, that's what he wanted. He didn't like Ford.
Yeah. Duh.
That changed it. Wonderful discussion. It was a lot of fun. Oh my gosh, this is new stuff.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast. Big steaming pile of
Ross
news.
likes it.
Gross.
Hey everybody, we're in the studio.
My favorite studio.
We're in the toilet news station.
Just in case.
I'm tapping my paper on the table because there are things to discuss in this podcast. The news hasn't been super heavy this week, which is why it's like, you know what? What if we go deep on the discussion of the first part of this? What if we go deep?
I'm down to clown.
Hey, everybody. The last Doctor Who episode is the worst rated of all time.
Oh, sweet Lord.
Seriously, BBC, when you get in the hole, stop digging.
This show is probably going to get canceled. It's performing so poorly, which is a bummer for people who really love Doctor Who. I'm going to give you a very short, rough synopsis of the last episode. It revolves around this Indian girl who's dating a guy, and they broke up, and he ends up on a planet full of robots who gets integrated and becomes their AI overlord, where eventually they defeat him, and she says, the planet of the incels.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's really stupid. Oh no.
It's almost like they had a political message that was gross that this podcast constantly talks about as being just poison to anything you create.
And not only, I mean, and let's be honest, not only a really, but it's like really lame. It's also super lame and stupid.
Yeah.
AI is the incel. Ooh.
Well, no, it was the guy she used to date who she broke up with, and now it's become like murderous AI, and it's the planet of the incels because he is the planet or whatever.
Right.
Even though technically it's the incel singular, but whatever.
There's only one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly they're, we're going to get a jab in on AI and those stupid fucking men.
That's essentially what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Wow,
and it resulted in the worst rated Doctor Who episode of all time.
Shocked to hear this.
Yeah.
Not that
I can't
shocked.
believe it. So unexpected.
Super surprised. Hey, guess what we got? I'm going to change the shape of this. I'll put it in the corner.
Triangle.
I can't do triangles, Ross.
Oh, a dodecahedron?
Maybe.
Huh?
We had Star Wars Celebration, and it was in Tokyo, of all places.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
I
they
heard
made a
that.
bunch of Star Wars announcements. So
Yep.
get hyped as we go through the announcements at the Star Wars Celebration in Tokyo.
I love Star Wars.
They announced Star Wars Zero Company, a video game that is a turn-based, like XCOM.
Yeah.
Oh. You actually have my attention, Disney.
It actually doesn't look too bad.
Well, like, I don't know why they think that this is going to be a big seller. Like, it's interesting for weird niche people like me,
Yeah, it's not.
but
Yeah.
It's definitely not a big draw. This is only going to get certain gamers excited.
well, you know what the mistake
I'm
they're going to
interested
make
in
is? It needs to go deep on the janky, difficult, like strategy and systems and leveling. They're probably going to make it more simplified and easier to play.
Yeah.
Probably.
And that'll be the
Who's
the bad
developing
decision.
this?
let me
Bit
check.
Reactor, Respawn, Electronic Arts.
Oh, Respawn. Oh.
So maybe, Respawn. Yeah, Respawn, Bit Reactor, Electronic Arts.
Interesting.
I don't know which
I mean,
one's
look,
the direct developer. Probably Respawn.
I'm interested, but I will say this. I hope they didn't spend a lot of money on it because I don't know how many people are actually going to buy that. But
There are things that me and Ross will like, not necessarily everybody else.
no.
A Disney Plus show called Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past, a Lego Star Wars. Look how horrific Ahsoka looks.
Wait, that's Ahsoka? Oh no! Oh my god!
All right, also Roger the Rabbit is it in the background.
Listen. He can be into whatever he wants. He's a king, as far as
And-
I'm concerned.
Chewbacca's 20 feet tall.
Good lord!
That's the statue they gave him after the metal mix-up.
They had a hype preview for the Old Republic about the history and story of the game, I guess. Whatever. As far as movies, they announced Starfighter. The most notable part of this is it will star Ryan Gosling.
Is this a prequel or is this?
No idea.
No, it's a standalone.
Oh,
Well, the prequel, as in where does it fit in the timeline? would
yeah.
be-
Like we're in the time.
I think it's somewhere in the current era.
well,
Oh.
that would be my
I think
guess.
is what they said.
Directed by Sean Levy, which is interesting.
Oh, Deadpool guy.
Yeah. And Ryan Gosling.
Oh.
And it's funny, they were very aware of the things are announced all the time but never come out. And Sean Levy flat out said, this is actually happening. We start production like early next year or something. He's like, this is happening. I mean, we're getting a Ryan Gosling show. Like, look, it might be refreshing to go to like a space thing where they fly starfighters and stuff. So that might be interesting.
Well, didn't they announce a Rogue Squadron movie forever ago? That was
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
That's
I just
still in
looked
the
it up.
air.
It says the film is set about 5 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker.
that. I'm shocked they're doing that. If I'm going to be honest with you all, that's really surprising. Also interesting that they're recycling a name from a video game.
Yeah.
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 You know what this might actually serve? To help bridge the gap between the Disney trilogy and any new movies.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because if they're going to do stuff that happened after, it'll help timeline-wise to help bridge the gap if they do movies sort of in the interim.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. We'll see what it ends up looking like.
This happens
bold
all of the
move.
time with nerdy stuff. They give me a title and a general concept, and it's like assuming it's good, and then we see it and it's not good.
Yeah, and it's not like Disney hasn't trotted out the actor in the supposed new movie before, and then it hasn't happened. Ray trilogy.
Well, actually, you're going to get into that, aren't you?
Well, we're going down the list of announcements, yes.
I was gonna bring something up, but
They showed Mandalorian and Grogu movie stuff, which is going to suck. Starring
Oh, what
Pedro
a great
Pascal, Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, they got Sigourney Weaver in this.
Yeah. I heard people, because apparently the trailer, whatever, leaked. And I've heard it leans into the, isn't Grogu quirky and cute where he does things?
Oh, like 4 years too late for that. What are we doing? What?
Yeah.
Hey, Disney, sweetie, what's happening?
He's a Yoda baby that will never grow up, and Pedro Pascal is a proxy for Boba Fett. None of this is new.
so we're getting a Peter Pan story set in the Disney universe.
Some Lucasfilm animation
Oh.
20th anniversary. Light and Magic is getting a second season. I didn't know there was a first one.
Yeah, never heard of it. I mean, the company, not the show.
Hyping up the manga they're doing for the Thrawn series from Timothy Zahn, which is actually good, but we're getting
I mean,
manga stuff.
the original one was good too, wasn't it? Though, like the
Yeah.
old Legends one. So it's just like, all right.
We're getting toys of a game that came out a few years ago with Cal Kestis and Jedi.
And a
Suit-
Frogman.
Yeah. Apparently it's part of this Black Series, and we will get a Dash Rendar figure, believe it or not.
Oh.
A little late to the table for that one too. People are going to be like, Dash who?
No, because the people buying those toys are all dorks like us.
I gotta say, I liked the video game.
A story DLC for Star Wars Outlaws, the extremely successful Star Wars
Do you-
Outlaws.
Do you think Disney made Ubisoft eat the cost on that one since they fucked up the game so bad?
Maybe. Monopoly Go, Star Wars.
Oh, is this worthy of an announcement?
The K2S0 Lego set.
No, K2SO, sure.
Yeah. Young Jedi Adventures, which is fun because they're all going to be murdered. All of these people are dead in the future.
We were kidnapped from our families. Dun-dun-dun.
We were killed by a kid with trauma.
He didn't get to see his mommy.
Apparently, there's Star Wars MetaQuest stuff. This game already exists. I wonder if they're redoing the Vader one.
Why did
Anyway,
they make that
so-
guy look like Dexter Jetster, but not? Like a big,
'Cause they
fat,
don't wanna-
sweaty WAP Italian.
Pay some guy to play him. I don't know. There's just something we missed, Jason.
Yeah, the Rey movies. I heard that that was part of one of the announcements that it's still going forward.
Yeah, I mean, just as the Rogue Squadron movie is still going forward, apparently. There was a recent Star Wars, and everybody, wait while I type in.
It's one of those
Talk
things.
amongst
The
yourselves.
the internet when they thought that was being canceled, but all heaved a collective sigh of relief, and then.
Oh yeah, we're getting a Maul series. An
Oh.
animated
Oh, yeah.
series where he's training his apprentice.
I want the Maul series about his lower half.
just waddling everywhere.
You know that joke that Red Letter Media made? I mean, at this point, like 8 years ago now, about the story about how Han Solo got his pants.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just, I don't. Do we care about Darth Maul? I mean, I realize they brought him back in the stupid ass Solo movie, and they've had him in the Clone Wars or whatever. Who do regular fans care about this other than the mega dorks that watch Clone Wars? I mean, not to be rude,
No.
but it's just like okay, like
These aren't announcements that are going to draw.
No.
These aren't hype announcements. I mean, maybe the Ryan Gosling Starfighter movie.
yeah. But the problem is, though, despite the fact having a fairly big name, although a name that seems to have trouble drawing, see the Stuntman movie he did last year that didn't draw.
Which was actually decent. I liked it.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, is I heard it was good, but like nobody cared, even though his name was attached. But like Disney has done so much of this already, specifically with Star Wars. Like the biggest offender being their Star Wars IP, where they announce a thing, it doesn't go anywhere, and then they either quietly announce it's shelved or canceled, or they just never do, and it's perpetually, in production. See the Rian Johnson trilogy. So it's hard to care when you don't know if this is actually going to get done or it's going to be shelved.
I agree. Moving on. Oh, I have an ad on the.
Oh, not to backtrack. Can I bring up one thing on the Doctor Who thing real quick?
Yep.
You know what's so interesting to me about, because they've kind of slowly ground Doctor Who into the dirt ratings wise, is they've done this with two of their largest shows now. Because they did it with Top Gear, where they fired Jeremy Clarkson because there's a whole mess around that, and then they had a revolving door of faces of that show that were less likable than the last.
Yeah.
And they've just now it's canceled. It's gone. I mean, at one point in time, that was one of the biggest TV shows in the world. What's going on at BBC that they can't maintain anything?
I mean, well, one could speculate the current political climate in Britain is very hypersensitive. On top of that, apparently USAID was funding the BBC as well.
And I mean, even Disney spent big bucks on the Doctor Who. I bet they're not going to do it now.
I think they're probably going to withdraw their money because they're not getting returns, because that show's just not doing well.
Yeah. I mean, who could blame them?
The BBC's always had problems, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Sorry.
No, yeah, I mean, it was such a big show that Amazon actually just started the same show and called it something different.
I mean, literally. Same, they just brought Clarkson, May, and Hammond over and just did Top Gear 2.0, basically. And it was big for them.
Well, this happens all the time with production companies where they're like, well, screw you, you're replaceable. And it's like, apparently they aren't.
Oh, talent's hard to come by, it turns out. Talent and likability.
Apparently, the 3-month period from January to March saw losses in every category of production in Hollywood.
Oh dear Lord.
Just dumping. And there are a myriad of reasons. Economic, lower interest, the fires.
Oh.
Politics might have a factor in this. But yes, apparently
Quality.
everything's dumping. Last year, there were roughly 7,700 shoot days for TV shows, and there's been a decrease of over 58% in 3 years from its 2021 peak.
Oh. Holy God.
Hollywood is hemorrhaging.
Hey, Rhett.
Yeah.
What other part of our country saw a huge, industry shrinking and then death? Well, what part of the country is that again? I'm trying to remember.
California.
California.
No, the Rust Belt. Those
Oh,
places
yeah.
are really nice, aren't they? Didn't they stay really nice and friendly? And,
The collapse of the
economically
American
sound?
auto industry with Detroit and stuff. Yeah.
Boy, I wonder what's going to happen to L.A. Anyway, just a random thought I had.
Unrelated,
It's completely unrelated. I was just thinking about Ohio and Buffalo, New York, and Detroit, just Gary, Indiana, just random play. Not really of any concern.
Yeah. So there's this game coming out called Marathon. Everybody says it looks like Concord and crap.
Yay, Bungie! Oh, new Bungie.
Is this a remake of the?
Nope.
No. It's they are reviving the IP to make this game.
Okay.
And I think technically, in the timeline, it is post those games because it's still on Tau Ceti or whatever, but it's like after things have gone to shit on Tau Ceti. So
I remember playing the first Marathon.
yeah.
It looks terrible, and everybody's response seems to be fairly negative on the internet. Good luck, Bungie.
Their image with their fans isn't bad, is it? Oh.
One piece of news I found out that's kind of interesting. Bungie says there's going to be no proximity chat for Marathon in order to create a safe space for players.
Oh my god. So, can I add a little bit of context to that?
Absolutely.
So Marathon is an extraction shooter. Now, unlike, say, the Hero... Now, it's a weird one because it's a hero extraction shooter, which I don't think we've really had. Hunt almost is, but it isn't. Like, there's characters you can, buy, like almost like skins in a way, but they, as I recall, and it's been a long time since I've really cared, they don't have, you upgrade the abilities on them, not they come that way. Does that make sense? Or they
Sure.
do, but that's why they're money. Anyway. So extraction shooters, the two big ones are Hunt Showdown and Escape from Tarkov. And one of the greatest additions, Escape from Tarkov is by far the largest. But it's been in development for a long time now. That game has been a gradual building into what it is now. And one of the greatest additions that game had was proximity chat, because it allows you to do a lot of interesting, fun things that you couldn't before because there's no way to communicate with random players that you'd find out on the map. Because extraction shooters, for those that may not know, it's PvE/PvP. So you go onto a map, you load in, and there's NPCs that are, depending on if you're playing as a scav or a merc, they may be friendly or not. And then there's other players out there who could be playing scav or merc. And that's up to them whether they want to kill you on sight or not. Odds are they will, because they don't want to have you kill them when they turn their back. But with the addition of proximity chat, you can make deals with each other and, call truces or dress up like a scav and try to infiltrate, or vice versa. It's really funny and fun. And the fact that they're not doing this because they don't want the toxic player base to be toxic is, I'm going to be honest, a death knell. Because that is...
For this type of game.
For this type of... that is one of the big draws, is that you can... the game is kind of what you make it, in a sense. It's not a sandbox, but it kind of is. This is a really bad idea, and it's... I'm sure they're trying to appeal to a certain subset, but those people aren't going to like a game. And I've heard that Marathon is really hard, by the way. People that have played super early builds, I've heard that Marathon, even for an extraction shooter, is freaking hard. So, who's this appealing to? Put the proximity chat in so people can talk. This is really dumb.
Maybe they think that they've created the new... Because shooters seem to go through waves of sort of popularity. You get the shrinking Battlefield one, and you get the PUBGs, and you get the parkour stuff. And maybe they think they're ahead of the curve, that this is gonna blow up, and maybe that's the intention. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's it's just funny that it took years for this to get into extraction shooters, and now they think it's the better choice to go backwards and take it out. It's just very odd.
moving on. In the meantime, while I was looking up stuff on Marathon, I found out that apparently China had the first human and robot marathon. And only 6 of the 21 robots that they used in their marathon made it to the finish line because a lot of them overheated or fell apart.
Oh.
I don't know why it means anything if you can make a robot that can outpace humans.
I mean, don't we technically do that on factory floors every day? Have robots outpace us?
Well, because the point of a marathon is the endurance. If anything, a robot can do better than a human is the endurance.
Yeah.
It can work forever.
God. By the way, I hate that, Red. I don't know what it is about that particular concept, but it really gave me the super ick.
Erasing the robots.
That felt so gross. Like,
well, we're here to gross
man-made
Ross
horrors
out.
beyond my comprehension.
You'll be playing some athletic thing, and it's like, I gotta compete with the robot.
God, get dunked on by the Shaquille O'Neal of General Electric or whatever.
Yeah.
Like Boston Dynamics.
It's literally 12 feet tall, and all it does is have an arm that just pushes the ball down.
Well, that's the thing. Like, so, oh my God, just the whole idea is so stupid. The point of robots is to specialize. But whatever.
Well, see, that's the thing. Why would you let a robot go in a marathon? Like, that's really dumb. Oh, the reason is like nationalistic to prove that China can produce these really cool things. Pretend like they're human-like, so they put like jerseys on them or some dumb garbage. It's also advertisement for the company. Look at our technology, even though most of them didn't make it to the finish line.
You're gonna ask the government to blur out the company name on the ones that didn't make it.
Yeah.
To save face.
China legitimately had this thing where they showed off like, and this was not too long after Elon Musk showed off his robots. They had a thing where they showed off robots and they looked all lifelike, and then you find out that it's just really skinny women in outfits.
Wait, are you serious?
Oh no! Here, I'm going to happen. I'm going to find this.
Are you talking the ones that look like the synthetics from Fallout 4? That one that was like hanging on a.
Here we go.
Oh no!
I found it.
Oh,
it's not formatted correctly. I'm not ready for this.
I love ads.
Oh, sweet. Another ad. That's what I wanted.
Oh, they need to pay us.
Okay, there they are.
No, Red, are you? Oh, no.
And they have them all like moving stiff and stuff. And then there was this big call out of like, yeah, those are people. Here she is eating.
Oh, my God.
Ex-robots called out women in robot suits spotted at World Robot Conference in Beijing.
And you know what? Like, if this was anywhere else other than China, I would assume it was like some performance artists that were like crashing the event.
No, but China would literally try and fake it to be like, look at how much more advanced we are than the rest of you.
Exactly, but because it's China, like, you're like, oh no, they're.
I guarantee you that company claimed that this was actually real.
Awesome.
Love me some China.
The glorious CCP shall live forever in our hearts, and I accept their overlordship when they get here. Anyway.
Well, much like a lot of Hollywood, apparently Warner Brothers executive Jeff Goldstein admits that they need to right the ship. And he apparently believes, the CEO believes that the answer is big IP. So in order to right the ship, they have to sink bigger money into bigger IP.
Yeah. How many times has this worked for you in the recent past?
Well, what bigger IP
more
can
money
we
at the
get
problem
these
and go
days?
away.
Like, not to be that guy, but like, what bigger? Like, literally, what bigger can you get? Like, what bigger IP can you get than Batman and Superman?
Do you know Do you know what the last successful DC movies were?
Aquaman?
No. The most recent because we've had like 6 or 7 failures in a row.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know.
The Batman, which they're not making a sequel for,
Not yet.
and Joker, which they failed in the second movie.
Oh my god, and Joker was pre-COVID.
And all of these are not part of their main timeline.
No.
Think about
Holy
it.
shit. That's... I didn't realize they didn't have anything that was...
We had The Flash, we had Aquaman 2, we had
Jake
Blue
shit.
Beetle,
Which ain't shit.
we had Wonder Woman 1984 with a Trump allegory.
Oh, yeah, I did. Boy,
Justice
that's really
League
embarrassing.
with the Vaseline upper lip.
Yeah, it looks great. I mean, it's just old. That's old Hollywood, baby. Except it costs way more money and
Just failure after failure after failure.
Jesus.
Moving on, apparently psychotic toy creator Todd McFarlane thinks that Zachary Quinto would be a perfect Batman.
Okay.
No.
No.
The answer is no, Todd McFarlane. You psychopath.
You know, it's so funny that like Tim Gunn put himself at the beginning of Tim Gunn's Creature Commandos. Tim Gunn.
He actually has himself animated in it.
Yeah, and it's because that always reminds me of the Spawn show from HBO from 20, 30 years ago, where Todd McFarlane's at the beginning of it. Like it's like almost like it's Twilight Zone or something. You know what I mean?
You know, they had some Spawn comic books that actually damaged Spawn character like later on. They had like a flashback that revealed that what's his name, the guy that's in the Spawn suit before he died, was a wife beater, despite the fact his whole motivation was Wanda and wanting to get back to her. That apparently he was abusive.
Oh my god.
So it's like, oh, now you've damaged Spawn's character. Oh, awesome.
Ugh. Oh, and I apologize. I meant James Gunn. Tim Gunn is the guy from Project Runway. Anyway.
Here's a fun one that will need some explanation. So apparently, because of how the chip for the audio was made in the SNES, that used it was crystal and what was it? Ceramic. That for some reason, over time, since the SNES has been released, they're clocking that the audio processing unit has been slightly speeding up as it gets older.
What the hell?
That's so weird.
Was like the crystal still growing or something?
I don't. So apparently they've run tests, and the original clock speed is supposed to be 32 hertz, but testing in 2007, they found that it had gone up to 32 and 40 hertz. And then in 2025, 32,076 hertz, with the fastest ones running at 32,182 hertz. So what does that actually mean for SNES itself? Well, the CPU clock speed relies on a crystal quartz, appears unchanged, but the faster APU using the ceramics has slightly sped up as time has gone on, which might result in a generally slightly faster audio and slightly higher pitch.
My god. So like games are going to be wrong like after a while. That's hilarious.
Yep. The hardware literally will not last, but in a weird backwards way. That somehow, because of the materials they're using, the processor's speeding up and not slowing down or falling apart, which I found fascinating. I was like, really?
That's really interesting.
I mean, usually it's the other way around, so yeah.
Yeah, well, and you think about degrading technology, it's usually because like with the PlayStation games, it's like almost like a delamination, right? Like they degrade.
There's
In this
such
case,
a thing
the
as
console literally won't run right.
there's such a thing as like CD rot, where
Yeah.
the silicon CDs will actually rot.
Yeah.
But yeah, for those who are into retro gaming, we'll see the longevity of your games and whether or not they survive. So 4chan has been hacked and is likely gone forever.
Oh no!
Not a frequentler of 4chan. Believe it or not, 4chan has had a massive effect on the internet and will probably not go away. It'll just morph into some other thing, which people will migrate there. 4chan has been the origin of leaks. They've actually been able to trace that a lot of memes can trace themselves back to 4chan in some way. 4chan was the source of a lot of like sketchy stuff going on the internet. Like Anonymous existed in 4chan, as well as a bunch of other really sketchy hacking groups. And 4chan famously went after this guy who abused his cat. They found a video and they were able to use like going into the video and then looking at evidence with the window and possible location to actually track down where this guy was and get revenge on him because he had abused his cat. For good or ill, the degenerates on 4chan have finally lost it, as the site has been hacked and they will never be able to recover from it.
Oh jeez.
Apparently someone on a rival messaging board claims responsibility.
The Janissaries couldn't keep him out.
Couldn't keep him out. Rivalries everywhere. And that was the news up. Which apparently we have our little news station inside the spaceship, believe it or not.
Well, we are a mobile news station.
And we sit in the bathroom and talk about news is what happens.
It's how we feel about it.
It's about a special podcast. Well, there's one last thing. Alrighty. It's you, Jason.
Yep. So tonight on our I'm sorry.
Now that
he's
you're in
dying.
charge, you're just like Jason coughing in the background.
He's got the TB.
Tuberculosis, everybody.
We have Hermione, who is armed with the shotgun that shoots shotguns, and her
Good Lord, Jason.
her handicap in this fight is that she can only move when her
Is
opponent
she a
moves.
woman? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
And she is fighting against a vampire slayer that is armed with a chainsaw, but this vampire slayer is trapped in a
Ozzy
potato
Osbourne?
sack. Yeah.
How trapped are we talking? Can he not escape with his said chainsaw?
Well, he would have to escape first.
So at the beginning of the fight, he's trapped in a sack and he escapes with chainsaw. But it's less relevant because Hermione can't move until he moves. So she just has to wait for him to get out of the sack?
Well, you would
can
assume
fire
that
the
he's
shotgun.
moving to get out of the sack.
So she can
Well, that's the
walk if
question.
he's chained. I'm just saying, if he just lays still, she can't do anything. So it initiates when he needs it to.
Yeah.
Couldn't she just shoot the shotgun, though, even if she's not moving?
I don't know. The rules are arbitrary with these weird. It's like she shoots a shotgun that shoots. Well, how does it come out of the barrel? Do the shotguns fire at like normal like shell speed? So are these 8-pound shotguns traveling at like 100 miles an hour? Like, what are the rules here?
They're fired out just like a shot from a shotgun. Only, I guess, more like a slug from a shotgun rather than shot from a shotgun.
Well, I would say the vampire hunter if it wasn't for the sack. But because of the sack, and she could just fire 8-pound things of metal and wood at high speed, she probably kills him and wins this fight. This seems like less of a debate and more straightforward.
Interestingly enough, this is what ChatGPT has to say. Hermione, armed with a shotgun that fires shotguns, infinite recursion of boom. Can only move when her opponent moves, so like Weeping Angel rules, but in reverse. Vampire Slayer armed with a chainsaw, classic Slayer tool, trapped in a potato sack, which is inconvenient to say the least. Round 1, starting condition. The Vampire Slayer is already in a sack, so he's not moving. Therefore, Hermione is frozen in place. They're both stuck. We got a stalemate, like a super weird magical standoff where no one can actually start the fight. Round 2, tiebreaker. Let's assume someone sneezes or a squirrel distracts them and the Slayer wiggles slightly in the sack. Hermione instantly gets to move. She whips out her absurd shotgun launcher and boom, shotgun fires shotguns. Now, the Slayer is still in the sack. Might get a chainsaw through the sack, but that's messy and slow. Meanwhile, he's being hit by dozens of miniature shotguns from one mega shotgun. Hermione wins unless the Slayer magically pre-cuts the sack or is immune to shotgun blast via vampire magic. Otherwise, the second he twitches, she becomes the human embodiment of ballistic chaos.
Yeah, so Hermione wins.
You could argue that he gets the chainsaw through the sack and manages to get out of the way while she's firing shotgun blasts. And as long as he manages to be quicker about getting out of the way of the shotguns, he could get up close, and she doesn't really have a lot of options against the chainsaw at that close range.
But it's getting out of the sack, which means she can fire on him as he gets out.
Yeah.
Sure. But he would have to be pretty quick in order to be a vampire slayer. Otherwise, he'd be dead.
Well, not quick enough to not be caught in a sack. I mean, she is just a little girl, and I hate Hermione and Harry Potter, but he is
But you see, the
trapped in a
shotguns,
sack.
shotguns is pretty great.
Right. Would we assume that the accuracy would be wonky because it's not very aerodynamic, the shotgun?
I would assume that it would fly out at the person, but yeah, it wouldn't be really an aerodynamically stable projectile.
Yeah, I think it would start to tumble pretty quickly, which may be even scarier.
Lends a little bit of unpredictability to the ammunition there.
Is this going to be like last week where the literal one person that could defeat the other person is in the fight?
Maybe. I mean, like I said, if Hermione starts firing inaccurate shotgun blasts, and the vampire hunter manages to get out of the sack and roll away. But yeah, you do have the danger of every time you move, she can move, which means that she has the ability to fire shotgun at you.
Shotgun Leviosa. It's Leviosa.
Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Is that
Unfortunately,
Ross? Are you of the
unfortunately,
same?
I have to vote for Hermione as much as I don't want to.
Well, that's 2 votes for Hermione. I would rather have the Vampire Slayer win, but Hermione is going on. So Hermione lasts through this round.
If it were up to me, the next person to fight in this is going to win, but we don't. The person that wins is not exactly the person that we like.
Very true. Well, that's it. That's the round for tonight. We have next time on the roster, it's Forrest Gump, who knows Kung Fu, but is allergic to all animals, is going to be fighting against the Mario Brothers, who throw sticky bombs but can only see movement.
Like the T-Rex.
Yeah.
Forrest Gump doing Kung Fu was awesome.
When I was in China, Jenny, they taught me Kung Fu.
I'll teach our AIDS baby Kung Fu, Jenny.
Jenny.
You're a terrible person, and you don't deserve me. I'm just a simple man. You took advantage of somebody with the mental capacity of a child. Jenny's the worst character in the world. And Uncle Joe is a hero.
He's a pretty bad person. Well, let's not get carried away.
No. It's been a special podcast. It's been quite entertaining for me. If you enjoy the podcast, be sure to share, like, subscribe. Especially at the stage of we're very small, subscribing and sharing with your friends does make a difference. Let's create the snowball that results in gold chains. Because you know what we do when we have money, we display our wealth. No, I just want the podcast to go places. We got interesting things to say. But regardless, we appreciate you coming by and listening to this podcast. We will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast or on Instagram at Distracted Gamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.